So what we have here is the BD Sewn anchor system. The intent here was, hey, is there a sort of a really burly, adaptable way to build an equalized anchor when you're doing kind of what we see more and more of these days, and that's climbing routes that maybe the anchors are fixed, they're 2-bomber bolts, they're well placed, and you arrive at that belay, and all you have to do is fire 2 lockers onto those bolts. You're on an equalized anchor with 2 shelves. You know, it's like the next version of the quad. Maybe lacks the versatility of a quad because that's just a big sling, but what else do you use a big sling for in scenarios like this? Around BD here is like, oh, why would we make something that doesn't have this maximum versatility? And then once you start using it and you realize, depending on where you're going, how often this scenario is true, or top roping, setting up wraps. This is a really useful bomber. I say it's nearly foolproof in the way that you use it. So it's really great for people that are moving fast or moving light or working with beginners. You know, it's just very clear. You clip in here, you're in. You clip in here, you're in. You clip in, anchor to the 2 ends. Super simple. If you're climbing with a party of 3 or 4 and you arrive at an anchor and this is there and it's just easy to clip into that. Also nice when that party starts to depart, the last person takes this and you're always left with a really bomber anchor for every person. We've tried to provide enough distance that it's awkward. It's possible to clip like this and drag it down. There you're in the scenario where if one of those bolts failed, you could go off the end of it. We try to build things that minimize those scenarios, but there's a certain level of sort of awareness that we have to believe people have around clipping slings, around anchors, around being in that scenario. If you're climbing and both people in the party are sort of unaware of that, I would say you're maybe not in a super safe scenario anyways. So it's possible. There's a lot of ways to use stuff and a lot of ways to use them wrong, even something like this. But generally what we find is it's really simple to use. It's really clear. As long as you make that one clarification, clip to one shelf, good to go. It's really designed so that it's nearly impossible to put a carabiner daisy clipped, we call that, where you clip around the bar tacking. You almost can't do it. You'd have to try to do it, and at that point I think you're probably making a mistake anyways. It's fully rated as a sling in all the configurations you could possibly use it wrong, meaning if you clip one beaner here and one beaner here, you could blow through those bar tacks if it's loaded like this, but you'll never break the sling. So it's fully rated at 22 kN. The other advantage here is this is 46 grams. You take a 180 centimeter sling, what you might tie a quad out of, and you're at 56 grams if it's Dyneema, and something on the order of 76 for nylon. So it's actually a weight savings netting out on your rack. If you are concerned with, and this is common with any quad or a quad configuration, if you have the knots up high and you lose one of the bolts, it's possible to shock load it as it extends. That's kind of really a good reason just to use this in the time when you're just going to be up with 2 really solid bolt anchors. You could clove or you could girth your beaner in and sort of guard against that, but really the intent is multi-pitch bolted climbing. So if you go into it with the mindset of like, here's the intent, can I sort of emulate those conditions in a trad anchor? It's certainly possible, yeah. You just have to have that awareness. It's the same set of conditions that would apply to any trad anchor where, the spacing of the anchor is really important. The height of the 2 pieces, the equalization that you get from this it's kind of limited to how you place it with respect to the position of those anchor points. You can't spread it too wide. I mean, it'll equalize, but it's just like any anchor. Because of the certification that this lives in as a sling, it has to guard against complete failure, which means, again, if you were to load it like this, those bar tacks would fail below 22 kN, but this sling, like our Instron, can't break it because if you look, it's actually 2 Dyneema slings sewn together. And that's how we get redundancy in this scenario. So Like if you load it like this, all these bar tacks below, you're going to be at 22 kN plus. The double layer, actually, I found it to be kind of nice because it makes it sort of have some structure. It racks pretty much like a 60 centimeter sling. You just pass it through itself. Clip it to the bolts, clip into it. And because of that sort of stiffness, it actually is really easy to use. The bar tacks are gray. That's just sort of part of the requirement around slings is they have to have a contrasting bar tack. And then you can see this upper end is really quite tight. And that's just to guard against placing a beaner through and daisy clipping around the whole bar tacks. Because if those were to blow out, then of course you lose the whole system, or that carabiner. But yeah, we find this to be a little bit of a sneaky product in that there's some skeptics, but just try it. This thing is available right now for $34.95.